Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. We are going to continue looking at the Tokai Open, which happens in Nagoya, Japan. And this is a 2-day 5-round tournament, and we are currently sitting on 1 out of 2 in round 3. So round 3 is the end of the first day, and we were very congested coming in on the train to Nagoya in the morning. So I felt a little bit better after round 2. Also getting a point on the board helped, eating some food helped, finding a few warm drinks at the vending machine was good. But our energy levels are a little bit low. We're getting to the end of the day now, third game of the day. And we're kind of hoping that we can at least just draw and then maybe sleep well and kind of get our boost on the second day. But yeah, what are we going to do? We have to sit down. We're not white, we're black. We are playing Zhang. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing the Zhang correctly, but it's another opponent which I've never met before, so very excited to play another person that I don't know. And you can see that they played a opening which I haven't faced from the black side many times in my life. So we sat down and they played e4 and we're like, alright, cool, Sicilian, let's do it. We had a Sicilian around 1. So out we go with c5 and they play a3 and I'm like, oh, okay. So for me, this is the wing gambit. It's not quite the wing gambit. I think the wing gambit is just to go straight here with with b4. But a6 to me basically is the wing gambit because the point is white is coming out on the queen side early to take black's control away from the center to make them trade off their c pawn or something like that. And I have no idea what the best move is here. So I play knight c6. I figure this is my normal response, and that's okay, but the best move is actually just to go g6. So here, you go g6, you're going to develop your dark square bishop on the diagonal before white does, and then you can just kind of almost like kid the opening, just fianchetto and castle your queen, your king, and then, it's a game, it's a game. So I'm playing a slightly suboptimal line here by going knight c6. It's not the end of the world, but it's not the best line. So now they go b4, and I have a think. So white is playing really fast, kind of unnecessarily quickly. They are not pretending for a second to think about anything. They see it and they play, and then they just they sit there over the board waiting. And as soon as I make my move, they just make their next move, and again they're just waiting. So I'm the one kind of taking my time in this game. I'm not sure what the best move is. I assume it's not to take the pawn. This is obviously a line, but I wasn't so sure if this is good. I feel like this plays directly into White's plan, and it kind of does. You have to do this, and then they come with e4, and this is basically the pawn structure that we had against the Grunfeld in the previous position, but Black has only had one kind of developed piece, nothing else, right? So they've got, White has lost a pawn, but White has got all the control and all the starting momentum in the game. I'm not keen for this. So after a while of thinking, there's a move like this, but then I wasn't sure what exactly I would do if they take or they don't take. If they push my knight out, and then for instance, if they push my other knight out, I'm really unsure what I'm supposed to do in this position, and the position will become more and more chaotic for me because I don't know what the right moves are, and if I have to start moving all my knights back to their original squares, clearly I've made a mistake. So after this, I decided, okay, cool, I have an idea. I have a place I can put my knight that seems unconventional but safe, and I also, if I lose my c-pawn, I still want to have some control over that center. So I play e5 instead. And this is not the best move, but it is a move that masters have played as well, and it scores kind of okay. So I'm actually really happy that I found this move, because now after they played b5, I kind of know my plan. My plan is I'm just going to go put my knight on the e6 square. I don't have to develop my light square bishop with any haste. I just want to develop my king side, get my king castled, and if my knight can sit around on that square for a while, pretty okay. I mean, I know kind of a structure like this that looks a bit like a Rossalimo structure that I know this kind of like backwards pawn structure. I've played that in some games before. So knight out to d4, c3, great. White just blitzing their moves. They're up on time just so fast. Alright, I go back. At least these two moves were kind of within my plan. And here they decide to bishop c4, and this is still actually in the Masters database. And in this position, I played what Masters play. I play here. I figure if they take, oh, sorry, if they were going to take, I would probably end up taking back. What would I have done? I know what I wanted to do, but I don't know if I would have done it. I wanted to take with my f pawn and then break with d5. That seems to make the most sense. You know, I'm also attacking the e pawn here, so they would have to defend that before they stop me with c5, for instance, because then I could take and just kind of defend here at the end. If they come at me here, I guess it's a little bit of a problem. Maybe I would have to defend first, but anyway, that was kind of the thinking that I had. However, they didn't do that, thankfully. They just defended their pawn. And now my next idea was like, alright, cool, well, maybe I can just develop on the king side. Maybe that seems fine, right? So I'm going to... And I didn't consider fianchettoing. I think with the speed that my opponent was playing, I was worried about doing a move like fianchettoing here, because it takes an additional move, and I wasn't so sure if I had had the space and time. So g6 is the best move here, and I can fianchetto, but I decided just to play bishop e6, e7, and this is not the best move, unfortunately. So I was a little bit sad about that after the game, but at least the next 2-3 moves, I kind of knew what was going on. So knight f3, I played d6, defending my pawns, getting that kind of backwards pawn structure that I had expected, which is okay. I'm okay with that pawn structure for now. I mean, this could also turn into kind of like a stonewall-y kind of situation, just with the wrong pawns. That would be stonewall, this is mud wall, something. Anyway, and here they decide to put a lot of pressure on my knight. And I had no idea what the best move was here. It turned out the best move was just to play d5 myself. Because if they take, I can take back. I can also just take here with my knight then, because then that pawn stops the bishop from coming through. So yeah, I have options here, but I didn't quite see this. So after that, I actually just decided to take their knight, and it's okay. It's okay, but it does allow them to bring their dark square bishop out onto my king side, and they do that, and they are still up on time and still playing incredibly fast. So, I mean, are they in theory? Are they just a maniac? Like, what's going on? So in this position, I figure I'm too scared to castle, actually. The white is playing like they know this position. You know, they're playing really aggressively. They've moved all their pawns off, like up. They've started to trade some pieces. If I castle now, what if they end up coming at me with like h4 and f4 and g4, and I'm just not sure. So I decide, okay, cool, let's put the question to the bishop here. And apparently the best move is actually take my knight, but they decided to move back one. And this doesn't actually change anything, but now I still don't know, like, great, I'm not going to play g5. That seems insane against this kind of opponent. Even if they go back, I know that there's a lot of weaknesses in my position then. Even if the engine said it was okay, I would be very uncomfortable with that. So instead I decide, alright, cool, I'm not going to castle, but I can't push that bishop anywhere. I'm not going to try and like jump my knight and trade it. I just want to keep on like trying to get some control of my position, and this bishop is my biggest concern. So I decide to just play bishop e6. And this is not the best move. They can, for instance, bring their queen into the back and take back with their queen instead of, you know, their d pawn. They don't have to double their pawns up. They can also just take and double my pawns up. But my thinking was, the light squares are the more scary ones around my king, and although I want to have a bishop to defend, they have a bishop attacking already. So if I develop my bishop and we trade off, which happened in the game, take, at least I have a pawn defending over here. And if I do decide to castle, I've got a rook over on the file, and although the opening was very chaotic, actually black is more developed. I've got two minor pieces out, white's got only one. They've got quite a pawn storm going on in terms of how many they've moved and everything, but actually my pawns are pretty solid. You know, there's no open file for white to go attacking on. I've got a half open file instead. There's no kind of easy entrance into my position, so although I've got doubled pawns, that kind of helps me to keep the position closed. So after coming in so aggressively, I felt like maybe there was a chance for me to at least slow things down. But White was still playing so fast. And here they did something I didn't see coming. They actually traded off their active piece. And I think their thinking was that this would be a bad bishop and this would be a good knight, which could be true. You know, there's a lot of dark square pawns I'd have to move. There's a diagonal here maybe to use, but currently there's not much value in that. So there's definitely a chance that that's good. But the other thing that this allows is maybe this was a bit more kind of like the maniac mentality, was it allows them to check my king. And oh, I was nervous here for a second because I kind of mis mislooked. I kind of like mistook the position, and I was figuring, oh, I'm going to lift my king and they're going to check me. For some reason I thought that lifting my king meant that it goes here, but then my queen would be here, and so this would come with check, and my king would have to start like running in circles on my back line. And if I, for instance, lose my e-pawn, then my king opens up again, then the light squares are scary again. But that's not the case. I actually just go directly up, and there's no entrance for the queen that matters. The g6 square doesn't actually go anywhere just yet. My long pawn bishop actually keeps everything very nicely defended. So after this, they castled, and I figured maybe I'm okay. Maybe I'm okay. White has traded off everything. They've moved incredibly quickly. So maybe I can entice them actually. Maybe I can entice them. And I play queen e8 and I go, well, move your queen. So, you know, kind of admit maybe it's a silly square for it to stay on. Or trade it off. And then I've got no more worries. There's no way your two rooks and your knight are suddenly going to crush me in the back rank here. You have no open files to play with just yet, and even trying to open one, I've got a lot of pawns to help me defend the position. And they obliged. They took, and I took back with my h rook because I'm guessing that if I'm going to do something, it might be over here in the middle somewhere. I figured that I'm not going to be able to break through on the king side on their king, because they're not going to move those pawns probably. So I'll just use the fact that my king is kind of in the middle, and I'll try and play on this queen side instead. So yeah, now all of a sudden the game is completely equal, and there's no more aggression from white. They've actually traded off everything. So although the opening was incredibly stressful, and every move I was sitting there thinking like, oh, what am I doing? Is this okay? I navigated it thankfully, and white ran out of steam. They traded off all their aggression, and now we just have a kind of locked up closed position to figure out. My bishop is worse than the knight probably, but the knight isn't even developed yet, so probably I can make some plan. So they play c4, pretty good move, defending all the pawns together, opening up that square for their knight, keeping my c pawn on a dark square, makes sense. And I play a6, I figure I'm going to try and open up the position on that side. Like I said, I want to play on the queen side. Here comes their knight, and I decide to take, and they take back with the knight. If they took with the pawn, that I think would be making me kind of happy. I might be able to put a rook here and try and push through, and maybe even bring my king up a little bit later. And in the long run, obviously, if I can open up a dark diagonal for my bishop, then actually maybe I would be better. So after this, they took, and I decided to just move my king in. I want to cover the c7 square. I don't want to allow their knight to jump in and fork me or kind of get into a silly position. I'm also going to defend this backwards pawn, and maybe there's also a way for me to get my bishop onto a different diagonal. So there's different ways for my bishop to maybe get into this position now, which feels good. It seems like maybe I'll be able to get some activity with this piece, which has been, well, basically just sitting there since it got opened up and doesn't have any immediate threats, but it does have some latent potential on this diagonal. So in this position, they play 8-4, and I decide to block that pawn. I go, whoa, 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 keep that pawn there. I'm going to double up. You're going to struggle to defend this a little bit maybe, and maybe that's where I can start to outplay my opponent in some way. So they bring the other rook over, and here I decide, okay, cool, I'm going to break. And my real thinking with this is that if they take, for instance, and I take back. If they take again, I'm pushing and I'm opening up the positions. If they take here, I push, I'm attacking their backwards pawn, I'm also attacking their rook, and my own e-rook will also open up. So suddenly I get a lot of activity, which would be really, really good for me. Unfortunately, they didn't allow this, so after I pushed, they actually just jumped their knight back. Now they're attacking my b pawn, they're also defending their a pawn, so a really nice move. And also that diagonal plan doesn't quite work anymore because they have a lot of defenders um, going into the pawn now, and also going into the diagonal itself. The knight is kind of blocking it up a bit. And here I decided to go, okay, cool. I'm probably not going to open up the position in the way I wanted to. This was maybe a little bit unprincipled of me. Probably I could have also just tried to kind of move my rook over, move my king up, and keep the tension. But I wasn't sure exactly how I want to keep the tension. If I go here, for instance, they can actually just check me with their rook anyway. If I go here, then any take with their pawn would actually be check, so I won't be able to push anything past. I'd have to react first. So I could have maybe moved the rook. And if I go here, then I'm just kind of far away from the rest of the board. I don't know why I'm leaving that side. So after this, actually, what I did was I just closed it up and I said, okay, fair enough. It doesn't look like I'm going to be able to open this position up in the way I want to. But at least that does give me all these dark squares. So your knights and your rooks and your king have slightly less space to play with. And I still feel like I'll be the one, maybe with some way to break open the position in the long run. But even if not, maybe it's not that bad, and at least white won't be able to run me over the board, because if I get a draw, at least I'm equal for the day. And here they played rook b5. They can take my pawn. It does look like I'm hanging it with some severe problems, but it's actually not that bad. There's not a lot of action that can go down here, and it actually gives me a little bit of activity as well. So in this situation, I could go down and attacking it, and if they wanted to defend it again, uh, I might be able to find a way to, what's the word? To counter them on this file. So if they go up here and here, maybe they try and go back at me. I can go up again. If they really, really come at me a lot, then I'd have to make some other plans though. Because if they can do this, then I'm ending up in a draw whether or not I want it. But my thinking is that my opponent doesn't want to draw because they're the ones that have been playing so aggressively. So I was hoping that there would be an easy way for me to counter this, but I didn't really calculate all of this properly. So didn't matter though. They didn't want to take my A pawn or my B pawn. They also didn't quite believe it. They decided to play the rook over to b5, and their point is that they're attacking my rook, and if I take, I actually clean up their pawn structure for them, or they can go back with their knight and keep the separated pawn if they want to push it. But it does seem to make their position slightly easier to play. So I decided to just fend my rook, and they took, and that doesn't seem that bad for me. I still think like in some ways I will find some way to make some progress. I do have this idea of I can bring the rook back maybe and actually just take that b file myself. And of course, if we do trade off, if for instance I bring my rook back and they also bring it back and they trade, then I might be able to walk my king in, because that knight can't defend the entrance square and the pawn. So I think I might be able to get in, and also I'd still be able to move my bishop around maybe. So in the long run, even if I don't get the immediate activity, I think I might be the one playing with more potential options on the board. So here they played knight e2, and I wasn't really sure what the point of that was, but I realized that, oh, okay, hang on, if you're not going to do what I thought you should, then I'm going to go ahead. My thinking is if they could come over, I can take the pawn. Oh, sorry, hello. Oh, I really dislike it when that happens. And here. And if they try and like bring their knight back, then they're just wasting time. So really, really happy to see it go back, because I'm not sure where it's going, but I figured that none of the other squares that it could jump to were either good either, right? So of the options they have, yeah, fair enough. 92 is probably one of the better ones, but it's definitely not ideal. So I was very happy to displace that knight, and it just kind of has to run backwards. They could, of course, have gone here, and then I would have slightly less options, but hopefully there would have been a way for me to go around with my bishop, maybe make some other plans happen, or in the worst case, I'd just be able to get a draw and then half for the day. although probably not best considering with my shiny feeder rating. I don't want to be losing rating. So anyway, they jumped back thankfully, and my ill-conceived gamble kind of paid off. And here I'm trying to decide if I can go in with my rook, and they let me. They actually move their king over, and I come in, and so I'm not winning. The engine says it's all zeros, but once again, I'm the one at least with some activity on the board. I've got my bishop who can come around as oopsie, who can come around as well. So it looks like at least I'll be able to cause some frustration for my opponent. Here they go g3, which I'm assuming was for f4 because after they take back, like, oh sorry, after they play f4, give myself some move. Take here. They can take with the pawn and create a structure here. They can also take with the knight and potentially get into some squares in my position. So g3, now they're changing their focus to the king side. But before they can play that, I actually get my rook in and I'm attacking their backwards pawn, which is really nice. And so there's really only like one way to protect this, which is with the knight, because if you protect it with the rook, then I can come over and take your a pawn, and then there's no way to protect your a pawn. So after I played my rook up, they do have to play knight c1. It does hit my rook at the same time, but I'm not going anywhere. This infiltration was very, very important to me, and because the a pawn is in a passer, I can still kind of try and walk around with my king later on. My bishop might still be able to get in. Without the knight here, after I take, at least one of these diagonals will be open. So I figure that, again, I have some chances here. So the rook stays instead. It just goes to b2. And their king goes back because they realize they can't come out to the other side. And I think they're actually trying to see if they can walk their king out in some way to be a bit useful. Maybe they can go here before they jump their knight back or something similar. And also they didn't want to be on the back rank as far as I can remember. So here I bring in my bishop, and now I'm actually attacking their knight, which is guarding this pawn, and my plan is to just trade it off if I have to. My slumbering bishop is coming to life. And after that, again, they will have multiple weaknesses to look after, and I'm hoping I'll be able to walk my king in on the queen side before they can make some passes on the king side instead. And in this position, they played rook a2. The knight is defending the rook is attacking the rook, but they made a bit of a miscalculation, and thankfully I saw it. And the move is to just take the knight. Because my rook is still defended by my bishop. So unfortunate miscalculation or misvisualization for my opponent. Obviously their point was that if this position doesn't get reached in this way, then I can't do this because I'm down in exchange and their rook gets very active. But unfortunately it's pretty good. And obviously if I take, then they can take with their knight. And although they don't have any immediate way to win, and I'm probably doing okay still, at least it's an equal trade, and my bishop can't attack anything on their side that really matters that much. They can play h4 to push it away and walk their king in if they want to. I've got a lot of kind of white squares on this side, light squares that are open. So in this position, thankfully I did see that. I took, and they decided to take because what else to do? They just lost a piece. And now I'm winning, but I still have to figure out how to win. I know I can walk my king over to the queen side if I have time, but they're going first and they're coming in the king side, so I have to be careful that I don't walk my king away and allow them to get a passer. So they come in, cool, I'm going to undouble my pawns, that's fantastic. And here they go, they have two isolated pawns on opposite sides of the boards. Neither is a passer, but it could be kind of tricky if both of them are still on if I start losing some pawns because we're trading off in the wrong way. And they also have this f and e pawn which are connected and still again not a passer, but could be dangerous. If for instance I fall asleep and they push and I take and they push past and my king's over here, then I might have some trouble to defend this e8 square, which is a light square. So still trying to calculate properly. I'm up a bishop, but we have to convert. We have to convert, and we're not going to do the same thing we did in round one. We are focusing until the end and making sure we get this point. So I play g5. I figure if they do move past, at least that weakens the pawns. I can trade it off, and then I can go hunt that one pawn. I can put my king in front of it, and then I can maybe get a passer over, a passer over on this side, protected with my bishop. Because I can use my bishop to protect key squares or to also keep their king from entering on key squares as well. So g4, and they move their king up. The point being, if I take, they can take with their king, and they just get more and more active. In this position though, I would probably go here, and then they would maybe go in, and then I would be, well, I'm doing okay, but my king can't go anywhere anymore, right? So as soon as they move that pawn, my bishop can't attack anything. My bishop can defend this pawn, but my king has to defend this pawn because they have a pass if they take, so it'll be a little bit tricky. But I didn't do that, thankfully. I just decided to attack the square again with my bishop. Important for me to get it active and to get it helping me to keep the position under control. And after they play f5, they had an option to take, and then I could take back with my bishop or my pawn, but at the very least, in that way, they wouldn't have any immediate way to access. I can try and find some potential way to open the position up to my favor. So after this, they played f5. I took, and here they still have ways to enter, so I got to be careful. But I decided to close off at least one of them. And this, again, as I said, I want to have this potential passer on the king side be something that they have to worry about. Because if they have to run back and I can protect it with the bishop at the right moment, then probably I can convert the point. So here they come with the pawn, and I go with my king. I'm going to force them to defend their f-pawn, and then I'm going to create this passer to make them run away at the right moment, or maybe I can find a way even to create the passer and protect it with my bishop at the same time, so that they have to keep on making moves and they will get into zugzwang at some point. So here they come, I protect. Of course they can go and attack this pawn, but very importantly, I have bishop a3 again. And now I can take the f-pawn, or I can try and create a passer directly with my h and g pawns. So my position is looking pretty good. Okay, here they continue with their a-pawn. They're trying to see if they can maybe take out my b-pawn, and from there I wouldn't have any strong way to create a passer without just kind of letting them get their own passer. But I found a nice move in between after that. So first things off, they have to run their king over there, so I have time, so I can go ahead and push. And this was a little bit unnecessary maybe. The reason I didn't want to do it was because their king can instantly get here in time, and then in this position, I'm probably better, I'm probably winning, but I didn't want to allow them to just kind of run down my pawn. Because now they come back and my king can't get in, so I have to be very careful. But I can actually still convert this because I can take here and then can zugzwang their king eventually. But instead I think I'm going to be fancy, I'm pushing past. Which means now my king has to stay here forever because it can't take the back pawn without letting the front one run. So my king is actually now out of commission. I've given up a pawn and I'm hoping that my h-pawn can run. So they start to go down to go. I bring in my bishop, and this is a key move because in this position I'm attacking their last passer, and if they move it, I take it with my b-pawn. And even if we trade all of that off, so for instance, I don't know, give them just any kind of move here. Let's just give them a move. Nope. I have to try. Okay, let's just do this. What can they? Okay, so here, let's just say they do this. If they make a move and I take, and they take my backwards pawn, I could still defend the front one if I had to. I could also still have my passer on the king side. So importantly for me, I was actually winning with the king side, and I was also winning on the queen side, but I just had to be careful about which squares I put my bishop on so it defends the right pawn. But in this position, then my opponent decided to resign. They realized that there's no way for them to win anymore. Their passes are connected, but they're not going anywhere. I have a pass on the H file that they can't stop anymore, and the passer on the A file for them is falling one way or another, and they won't be able to create a second passer in time in the middle of the board. So, super happy. This game started off incredibly aggressively. This opponent was so aggressive. They played so fast in an opening that I had never seen like on the board properly before. I think maybe I faced it in Blitz, but I don't think I've ever had a classical game against the Mengarini. I barely knew any theory. I basically just knew the plan of like opening up the queen side and making black lose the center. So I was really happy. I do think white misplayed a little bit with this super aggression and trading off everything, but in the same vein, I was happy that I kind of identified this as something that they were doing and played something like Queen E8, where I either forced them to run away or trade, because as soon as they traded, at least the game settled down a bit. That was kind of my main goal after I saw how the opening went. I just really want to slow the game down. So that finished day 1 of the Tokai Open. I was on 2 out of 3 now, super happy after coming in and having a terrible Swiss Gambit round 1. I won the second and third round. My shiny new feeder rating is shining strong. I'm probably still losing rating points at this point because I came in with such a strong K factor that everyone else is still lower rated than me that I faced. But that will change in day 2 as well, so do come back and have a look. The 4th round was really fun. I played fellow Osaka chess player and friend Sheldon, who I also sometimes face in other tournaments. And the last round, as always with most of our tournaments, thankfully, it's always kind of fun, is we faced our strongest opponent at the end on the highest board that we played. And yeah, our final boss awaits. So, see you again in the next one. Ciao, ciao.